From the Clark Ford Studio in Oxford, Mississippi, MBW Digital proudly presents the Oxford Exxon Podcast.
I'd say thanks for tuning in, but why am I going to give you a round of applause for something you're supposed to do, to be frank?
And now, here are your hosts, Chase Parham.
And broadcast school has really paid off.
And Neal McCready.
I deserve to be on TV.
Welcome to this Thursday edition of the Oxford Exxon Podcast. Chase Parham, Neal McCready, Clark Ford Studio this morning. I am in Oxford. Neal was in Nashville, Tennessee. SEC basketball tournament kicked off last night. The Rebs play the Crimson Tide tonight in a 7-10 game. The winner getting Kentucky tomorrow night there from Bridgestone Arena. So we'll have a good bit of basketball today. We'll talk some baseball. We're going to talk to Jeffrey Wright, see how he's handling the Odell Beckham news. We get into a little bit of the academic scandal that's hit this week as well or across the country. So a little bit of everything as we make our return. Thanks for the patience the last couple days with travel and some different things going on. Louisville takes 2 midweek games from the Diamond Rebels. They host Alabama, speaking of the Tide, this weekend to start SEC play as well. So a little bit of everything coming up on the show, brought to you every single day by the Oxford Exxon, Highway 6 West. They're in Oxford with the Blue Sky location. You know, you can go in, you can get that 49-cent bottomless refill on any stadium cup that you have in your possession. You also can get a lunch special for $4.99, 2 sides bread, 32-ounce drink, or maybe grab some ribs tonight on the way home from work to have them during the game to get ready for Ole Miss and Alabama hoops. And then again, coming to you from the Clark Ford Studio.
We are. Clark Ford is in Amory, Mississippi, 662-257-1900. Call the number, ask for our friend Corey Clark, and then tell Corey what new Ford you're looking for. Get a quote. If you're in the market for a vehicle, even if you're not necessarily convinced you're going to get a Ford, give Corey a call, get a quote. Does us a favor, and it does yourself a favor, because Corey's going to get you back with the quote within 15 minutes in business hours, right to the bottom line, no haggling, no hassle. At the very worst, it's going to give you, at the very least, I should say, it's going to give you a baseline to go off of as you move forward in your car buying endeavor. And we think you'll end up going back to Clark Ford because it's the best deal, great service, really good people, great products. I've done it several times. It is so easy. It's the easiest car buying experience I've done. 662-257-1900. At the end of your deal, tell Corey that you heard about Clark Ford on the podcast. You can mention any of our family of podcasts, and you'll save an additional $500.
So we'll start with basketball. You've been in Nashville for about a day or so, had a lot of media stuff yesterday. Heading into tonight, you've been, I don't know if confidence is the right word, but you felt the entire time Ole Miss probably gets a win tonight to start its SEC tournament journey, one that it likely does not need for NCAA purposes after beating Missouri in Columbia to close the regular season. But as we get to day of game, what are you thinking?
They were looser yesterday. They were relaxed. Kermit Davis said that they'd had some pretty physical practices back in Oxford. I think they had one earlier in the day on Wednesday. You know, they went to Lipscomb and practiced, and then they came to the Bridgestone and had the little shoot-around thing that's open to the media. So the shoot-around thing, they literally did nothing but shoot around, just shot, ran some shooting drills and stuff, but they didn't. Alabama could have watched the entire practice and gotten absolutely nothing out of it, other than KJ Buffin got a haircut. That's about it. I like them in this game tonight. I do. I've watched Alabama of late. They haven't been particularly good. I watched them. My problem is I'm having some recency bias. Everybody keeps talking about the previous Ole Miss game, and I get it. I do. I understand why that's a subject, but I watched the Alabama-Arkansas game on Saturday night, and it was in Fayetteville. Laura was out with girlfriends, and so I was watching that, and I was finishing writing from the Ole Miss-Missouri game, and I had that on, and it's hard to put it out of my mind. Alabama not only didn't play well, they didn't play hard. They were checked out. There's rumors about Avery Johnson. The rumor that is going around is that Avery Johnson wants the SMU job and SMU wants Avery Johnson. They didn't look like a focused team to me. They got a couple of injuries. I know that the game in Tuscaloosa was a really bad look for Ole Miss. I wrote about it yesterday. It was really, if you go back and look at Ole Miss's 18 SEC games, they won 10, and they lost by, they won at Arkansas. They lost by 2 at home to Tennessee. They lost by 4 to Kentucky. They lost by 5 or 6 at home to State, but that game was not decided until about a minute left. They were in most of the games. Even the South Carolina game where they lost by 15 points was basically tied with 4 minutes left. Carolina just closed it, and Ole Miss didn't. It was the only game that was never a competitive moment in the second half. It was the only game that Ole Miss, you could say, got blown out. Ole Miss got out physical that day. It was right after the Iowa State game. Ole Miss was not a particularly confident team that night. Terrence Davis played awfully, fouled out in 16 minutes. Kermit just left him on the floor to foul out. There was a pregame kind of a skirmish thing. They weren't focused. Alabama just really beat them up that night. Alabama's much better at home than they are on the road. Ole Miss went 5-4 at home, 5-4 on the road. I don't think the matchup is as unfavorable for Ole Miss as everybody thinks, and I don't know that their guards are going to guard Ole Miss's guards the way that they're playing right now. Breein Tyree was not good in Tuscaloosa. Devontae Shuler had a foot injury in Tuscaloosa, didn't play much at all. I'm not dismissing that game, but that game was 2 months ago. And so I'm also not putting much weight on it either.
Yeah, I think the last part, what you said, is the most relevant to what we're talking about. Devontae Shuler, that was the height of that stress fracture or stress reaction or whatever they were calling that thing in his foot. And it's the point where the next day, I think on the podcast, we had the conversation of, hey, if he looks like that, they are done. This thing does not look good at all. And instead, they managed it really well. They rehabbed it really well. It got a little better and better every single day. So, and as we saw against Missouri, as we've seen off the court, we've seen in a lot of different ways, Shuler's kind of the guy that drives this train for Ole Miss. So just having him at an acceptable level from a health standpoint really gives you, not every way, but in a lot of ways, ability to just throw this thing out and forget about it from 2 months ago.
That's what I think too. He was hurt that night. Like he hobbled around and they took him out. Trying to find it. I've got it somewhere. I've got it here. Let's see. It's a podcast. They don't have to be perfect. Where is that game? There it is. Yeah, I've got it. Okay. In that game, minutes played, Blake Hinson played 22. Olenichik played 24. Devontae Shuler only played 17 minutes. Terrence Davis played 19 minutes. Breein Tyree played 26. Brian Hallams played 11. Stevens played 23. Buffin played 16. Luis Rodriguez played 18. And D.C. Davis played 24 minutes. You can toss that game. I'm not saying Ole Miss can't lose to Alabama, but you can toss that game.
Let's look at some betting lines from the day today. We've got some of those up. If you're curious, just from a pure Ole Miss played both of them standpoint, Big 12 tournament today at 12:30 or 11:30 this morning. So maybe as you're listening to the podcast, Iowa State plays Baylor. Iowa State a 3-point favorite against Baylor today in the Big 12 tournament. If you're just kind of curious. Not a big game for either team, but potentially I think it's a big game for Baylor from a confidence standpoint, playing an offense like that with Iowa State. And Iowa State just needs some consistency, frankly. They can look like an Elite Eight team, and they can look like a team that's going to get bounced by a 10 in the first round. They're the weirdest group.
Yeah, I think we talked about that earlier in the year. They're one of those teams that they can shoot their way to the Elite Eight, and they could burn.
They're going to break a bracket either way when you get ready to put your pen to paper later on in the month.
Oh yeah, they're going to be like an 8 or 9 seed too. It's going to be one of those teams that, yeah,
sexy as heck to beat a North Carolina or somewhere, and then they could lose to the 9.
Oh, easy.
Arkansas,
really,
yeah.
I got that question on the mailbag real quick, and I actually thought about it. You would have loved it. I'd completed my mailbag, and you have to write that one in admin because where the questions are. And I'd completed my mailbag and lost it. Had to go back and re-answer most of the questions. And I didn't have a temper tantrum, Chase. Didn't say a word.
We have a save button. Hit it occasionally.
Yeah, well, I did this next time. I was like, every 2 questions, go save.
Yeah. You also could still answer in a Word document and just have the questions formatted in the admin and then paste them in.
Yeah, I could.
Okay.
Anyway, I was looking at the top 10 or so teams in net, and they're obviously good. They're in the top 10. But so the question was, which of those teams would Ole Miss match up best with, or which one could they beat? I mean, they could beat almost anybody. The only team in the country that, when they're fully healthy, looks difficult to beat is Duke. And Williamson hadn't played. I don't know whether he's playing tonight or whatever tomorrow. I have no idea. Everybody look. Ole Miss has played 2 of those teams. They played Tennessee and Kentucky. Ole Miss had a 3-point lead with less than 30 seconds left against Tennessee. So could Ole Miss beat a top 10 team? Of course.
Yeah, I agree with you. you didn't have to play well. Everything had to fall right, but sure, why not? You have to do it once. It's not a 4 out of 7.
Yeah, it's not. You're not winning a series, exactly.
So looking at SEC games, Arkansas and Florida kicking this thing off in a really interesting game. As you'll hear with Jeffrey later, I think Florida needs this more than anybody needs a game in this tournament. Talking about, obviously, the teams that can get in from an at-large standpoint and just solidify and help their case. What do you think that line is today in Nashville?
Oh gosh. I'm going to guess it's super close to a pick 'em. I'll say Florida minus 1.5.
Florida by 3.5 today.
I like Arkansas.
You could get the Hogs plus 3.5 on several books today.
I think Florida is going to be tight. I really do. I think they're going to be tight. Arkansas is playing well right now. Arkansas should have beaten Kentucky, beat Ole Miss, destroyed Vanderbilt, destroyed Alabama. They're on a roll right now.
If you want to look at bid stealers moving forward, Memphis plays at home in the American today against Tulane, a Green Wave team that's just awful. Memphis favored by 18.5 in that one. Scrolling down, Missouri and Auburn. Missouri wins. They beat Georgia last night to end the Bulldog season, first year under Tom Crean. Missouri and Auburn, what are you thinking?
I will guess Auburn is about a 9-point favorite.
It's a good guess. It opened at 8.5. It's now run up to 10. So Tigers by 10 in their first game of the tournament is what Vegas says.
Yeah. Missouri's okay. They've played a lot of close games lately.
It's just so hard to beat those teams with byes in either way because of your legs.
Yeah, the legs don't really kick in until the third game.
Okay. So the Missouri wins tonight. Tomorrow's they're done.
They're toast, yeah.
Yeah.
Remember when Ole Miss won the tournament in 2013, they played Vandy in the semis, and Vandy had knocked off Kentucky in the quarters. And Vandy's legs at halftime went away, and Ole Miss had gotten the double bye, and Ole Miss ran away from them in the second half.
Derek Millinghouse just getting it done. the floater in the lane. I was in Fayetteville, Arkansas. We were watching after an Ole Miss Arkansas baseball game. Almost had to either leave him on his own or help Richard Cross in a barroom brawl that night. It was an interesting little 10 seconds there as the Razorbacks in the room were all Missouri Tigers. So
who do you think Ole Miss, if Millinghouse's shot doesn't fall and Ole Miss loses the game, who do you think who's the head coach at Ole Miss in 2014?
I mean, that's your area. I don't know basketball coaches. I mean, who have they gotten? I don't know.
I don't know who they would have hired.
Didn't he always have a fascination with Buzz Williams?
Yeah. Buzz's name's back in the rumor mill today.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Buzz's name's popped up A&M, at LSU. It's kind of weird, man. Everybody wants to coach in the SEC right now.
Well, when you can go essentially 9-9 and at least be on the bubble, that's not a bad place to be.
Lots of TV, lots of exposure.
It looks a lot like the Big Ten did a few years ago, frankly.
Yeah.
It's kind of what I compare it to. So Alabama and Ole Miss, 6 o'clock tonight from Nashville. There's a break in the action, so this should start fairly on time. Music to McCready's ears over there. There's been some line movement, too. What do you think?
Honest to God, I don't know. I'm going to guess Ole Miss is a 2-point favorite.
So they opened at 1.5, but the money has been hard on the Rebels. You can get it as high as 3.5 right now. So it's jumped from about 1.5 to about 3.5.
I like Ole Miss in this game. I do. I know that doesn't mean I liked them at Arkansas, but I didn't factor in how tight they were getting. And they were getting tight. They're not tight right now. I look for them to play a pretty explosive game. I'll be honest, I kind of sense that they want another shot at Kentucky. I don't know why. I just think they kind of do. I mean, and look, I like Kentucky over whoever wins tonight because I've covered this tournament enough times to know what the environment is like. And I understand from an economic standpoint, the SEC really would like for Kentucky to hang around. And all you have to do is walk around Nashville a little bit and you'll get it. But I think the kids want another shot at him. And I think they want to eliminate any and all doubt. I look for Ole Miss to play well tonight. And I'm telling you, Alabama looks checked out to me. And you can talk bubble and stuff all you want to, okay? But their net chase is 58. They're not on the bubble. That's not the bubble. 58 is their net. They're not on the bubble. They're just not.
You know, I think if Nashville is a collective, the SEC is a collective, whatever, had their druthers, they probably would like Kentucky to get to the finals and then lose. Spread some of the wealth around, let somebody else win the thing, but make sure they don't leave Nashville before Sunday.
Oh, I'm sure they'd love to see, an Auburn, a Florida.
Well, no one with any FBI baggage.
Yeah.
Florida's fine. Your vanilla ice
right.
cream kind of works over there.
Yeah. That's the problem, man, is that, Auburn's in the news right now, and they just let an administrative assistant go who was the Chuck Person trials this summer. It's a lot of people, and I do mean a lot of people who are informed, and I'm not talking about media people. I'm talking about people in the game who just don't really believe Bruce Pearl's going to be there next season.
Yeah. Your final game.
I don't think the league. Number one, I don't buy conspiracies. I don't think there's any chance at all that the league has told the officials, hey, we really need Kentucky to win. I just think sometimes it becomes a subconscious thing. There are teams in the league that and Ole Miss is one of them, that I think the league would be pretty happy with them making a run. Because look, let's be real here. It's 4 hours from Oxford to Nashville. There's a lot of, as we know from our demographics and our analytics, there's a lot of Ole Miss people in Nashville. If in this scenario, if Ole Miss knocked off Kentucky on Friday night, there would be a lot of Ole Miss people here on Saturday, a whole lot. Yeah. And that would mean Ole Miss versus Tennessee on Saturday. And there would be, as you might imagine, a whole lot of Tennessee people there on Saturday. So the whole tournament falls apart if Kentucky gets beat this year. Nah.
No, it falls apart if certain teams make runs, but that's it. So
it falls apart if Florida, if Kentucky and Tennessee get knocked out, say on Friday. Well, Saturday would be a unique day, but the odds of that are pretty slim. So anyway, long answer to your question. I expect Ole Miss to play well tonight.
The nightcap tonight, Texas A&M against Mississippi State. State opened as a 7-point favorite with some of the Billy Kennedy news that is going around and circulating right now. It's only jumped to 8.5. Frankly, I would have expected it to go a little higher than that. They've
They've played okay. Billy's a nice guy. He deserves better than what he's getting. I'm not saying he deserves more time on the job. There's a way to fire somebody. And letting it out publicly while the guy's practicing with your team and not talking to him, which is what we've heard has happened, is Bush League.
Guy that's been to the Sweet 16 at least twice in the last 3 years.
And he's one of the most liked guys. They just kind of like the Vitter thing with Kennedy. You can make the right decision and do it the wrong way.
Yeah, I'll buy that. Okay, so looking at a couple analytics before we go to our first break, and we'll go to Jeffrey after that. Ole Miss predicted to win by Odd Shark 72-68 tonight. That has them winning, covering the spread, and the total going under. The total is 141, a little bit of a lower over-under tonight for that one, somewhere around 70 apiece. And then Ken Palm has it 75-72 Rebels tonight over the Tide. So just giving you a little heads up there. They're giving Ole Miss a 60% chance of winning the game, so 3 out of 5. Something along those numbers.
Yeah, I about that. That all sounds about right.
You good with that?
Yeah, I mean, I if the line's 3.5, I like Ole Miss to barely cover. I think a 5-point win, roughly.
Okay.
And the over-under, that's – Alabama's known to muck up games. That's certainly possible that the number would be a low number.
Yeah. Take a break here. Tell you about Scripted Jewelry. ScriptedJewelry.com. You can shop. You can get a sizing guide. You can get a lookbook, frequently asked questions, and even see what people have purchased recently to personalize your sentimental gifts, to make them unique, to put whatever you want to on it in your own custom handwriting. They got fingerprints. They've got footprints. They've got lots of different options for you. You will find something you like, and the turnaround times are fantastic. The customer service is great. And you'll get it when you need it and save money in the process by putting in the code REBELS10, REBELS10, for 10% off with ScriptedJewelry.com.
Jeffrey Wright's going to join us in a moment on the Patterson and Earhart hotline. Patterson and Earhart, attorneys at law, specialize in personal injury law, real estate law, employment law kind of thing. It's a general practice that can handle any of your legal needs. When you contact them, you're going to get one of them in person. One of the partners in the firm is going to talk to you. You're not going to get some paralegal. You're going to deal with them. They're great guys. They're Ole Miss guys. They're local guys. Very good at what they do. When you call them, you get one of them on the phone within the same day, guaranteed. So whether you've been injured in a car wreck or you have any other legal issues, you should give them a call, 662-526-1992, or check out their website, pelaws.com. Your initial consultation is free. My post-game column tonight is sponsored by Pinnacle Trust. Pinnacle Trust is based in Madison, Mississippi, but they represent clients in 24 states, and they have advisors in 3. They provide detailed, specialized investment management, financial planning, retirement planning for individuals and businesses, and much more. Here's what they do. I've been there. What they do is they sit down with you, regardless of your level of wealth. If you're making a ton of money or if you have a modest income, they talk to you about your retirement plans. They study your expenses. They put forth a comprehensive, detailed financial and retirement plan that's just for you, not some pre-arranged thing. They just slide you into a slot. Everybody's unique, and the retirement plans are unique as well. It's pintrust.com. PINN trust.com. Mention you heard about Pinnacle Trust on the podcast. You get 10% off your first year's fee. Podcast also brought to you by the Westin Jackson, my aforementioned mailbag, sponsored by the Westin Jackson. Gather at Estelle Wine Bar and Bistro tonight. Check out the Ole Miss game. Watch some of the other basketball games. Sip on a creative craft cocktail. Enjoy their curated wine list. Their burger's fantastic. Everything there's great. It's open for breakfast, lunch, dinner, Sunday brunch. Chef Caden's mission is to connect guests with the community through local partnerships. So gather at Estelle tonight.
Podcast also brought to you by Blow Dry Bar Oxford, the Blow Dry Bar at gmail.com, 1801 Jackson Avenue, 10 to 6, Tuesday to Friday. I think it's 12 to 6 this week for spring break hours, and then 10 to 3 on Saturday. And it's not just for the ladies. They do men's haircuts as well. You can go in, get get your haircut if you're a male listening. And there's not a whole lot of options in Oxford. I have not tried it out. I'm doing that next time, so they would give a little more of an in-person update. However, I've seen some pictures. They've communicated that this is available, so you can take advantage of it. You can also mention rebelgrove.com and, hey, get $5 off, too, while you do it. So you get a good haircut and a little cheaper at that. Again, give them a call to set up the appointment or to find out more, 662-638-3310. Now Jeffrey Wright here on the Patterson and Earhart Hotline. Jeffrey, good morning on this Thursday. Frankly, I'll admit I forgot we were talking to you today. Everybody in a little bit of a transition mode. Neal in Nashville tonight for Ole Miss and Alabama, 6 o'clock starting the SEC tournament. I know you like college basketball. You watch tons of it. Are you a big tournament guy? What's sort of your conference tournament thing? Or are you having to kind of hold all your extracurriculars for the NCAA tournament season?
I treat this week much like I treat preseason for the NFL. You know, I'd like to think this is that week 3 of the preseason for me. So, you know, obviously, like, you can have situations like you had on Tuesday night. Just a quick shout out to my beloved Gonzaga Bulldogs.
Mm-hmm.
A sincere FU, because they did not only did they not give 2 S's, they didn't give 3. Like, it was just breathtaking to watch. So, quick shout out to them. I trusted you, and I guess the fault lies with me there. So, yeah, I would say that's how I view this. As you can't be. Obviously, this is not going to be real game-like situations for next week because you still don't really have the same stakes. For instance, Clemson had a must-win game yesterday and blew an 18-point lead. So you can't really take this as do or die like it's the tournament, but at the same time, there's still stakes involved, so you still have to bet your hardest.
Who does this SEC tournament actually matter to? Florida? Is that number one?
Neal, I think you'd agree. Tennessee, right?
Tennessee probably could win it and get a one seed. It matters to Florida probably. They probably need to win today. I guess it potentially matters to Alabama. They probably need to win tonight and then beat Kentucky tomorrow to even really have a conversation. I think it's conceivable that it means something to Arkansas if they could beat Florida and then beat LSU and then maybe beat Auburn. That might actually be enough to put them in with the bubble as bad as it is. Otherwise, I don't know. I just don't know that it means much.
St. Mary's winning didn't. I mean, there have been a couple of stolen bids out there. So I guess really I have to give a shout out as a West Coast Conference guy to Gonzaga for manipulating that system to make sure the league got 2 bids, because St. Mary's wasn't getting in unless they won the tournament. Like, they were very bubbly and they had a resume that was not going to hold up. By the way, this is a team in Gonzaga that beat St. Mary's at one point 94-48 this year, and they got beat.
Yeah, Gonzaga clearly rolled the ball out on the court and said, "We got this."
Or you can say this. I mean, that Pepperdine game on Monday night took a lot out of them.
That's true.
Okay, so all those are West Coast teams. Is the Big West, is that Fullerton and Long Beach and those guys?
Yeah.
I get really confused.
Yeah, that's the West Coast. The West Coast Conference is all the West Coast Catholic schools and then the Church of Christ school and the Mormon school.
Okay, gotcha.
That helps you on that. It's all the West Coast Catholic schools. And then the Big West is, like
all the Cal State schools.
And the UC schools that aren't the UC schools that were built after LA and the bigger cities. So like Irvine and those schools.
Okay.
Santa Cruz and all that.
Yeah, UC Santa Cruz. I think UCSB is in that too.
Is that what San Jose State's in?
San Jose State is...
They used to be a WAC school, so I don't know what they are now.
San Jose State is... Are they Mountain West?
I don't know. Whatever. I'm sorry. Right. Hey, but
I think they're Mountain West.
I didn't lead with this. How are we feeling? You've had hours to digest. We got Beckham to the Browns. I know how much you loved him. Baker's going to be throwing to him. Everybody jumping on the Browns as this playoff Super Bowl contender. How we doing over there?
I love how both of y'all waited a grand total of 38 seconds to just rib me on that. Like, thank you. I get that. And then your brother comes in over the top, like, well, at least they don't have a young coach trying to manage all of these personalities and whatnot. It's like, could you give me 35 seconds to grieve? Like, please. Like,
so is it going to work?
Yeah.
Well, evidence would suggest no.
Okay, fair enough.
How many teams has Odell Beckham won on?
Well, he's only been on one.
LSU. We've seen Beckham and Landry on the same team before. And I get it. Mettenberger ain't Baker, but there's more to it than that.
So you think Beckham's one of the reasons that Hugh Freeze got that win over LSU at 13?
Mettenberger did his part. I don't want to leave him out of this.
Okay,
But
fair
yeah.
enough.
I mean,
How the hell did Ole Miss win that game? That's still bizarre to me.
Those first, 4 passes that Mettenberger threw in which he just decided, he was just going to throw it deep, and Chief Brown just called fair catch on 3 of them.
Oh, that's right. It was a Chief Brown game.
It was.
It was 17-3 or something at half.
It was. Yeah, Ole Miss was out huge early.
And Hugh made him some adjustments at halftime and held on.
So, okay, trade-wise, though, for the Giants, how are we feeling about it? Let's go that way first.
Okay, so I've told you this move that I will do now.
Uh-huh.
When I know there's going to be big news, I put the phone away, and I don't want to get on the computer because I don't want to see the takes, because I want to look at, okay, well, what is the I want to look at the trade, and so I'm not influenced outside. And so I looked at it, I was like, okay, and y'all have heard me say this for years. I think the number 1 wide receiver position is wildly overrated. Look back at every Super Bowl champion. Okay. Chase, who was the best receiver on that Saints championship team?
Marcus Colston.
Okay. Who was the best receiver on the Pats this year? Edelman?
There wasn't one. Yeah, sure, whatever.
Okay. Last year, the Eagles, Alshon Jeffrey's a quality receiver, but would you say would you rather have him than Michael Thomas?
No.
Okay. The best example you could make is Atlanta with Julio, and they had a 28-3 lead. They should have won.
Well, yeah, teams with excellent wide receivers aren't prohibited from winning the Super Bowl, but that doesn't hurt your point.
Right. And then, other than that, the Niners with Jerry Rice, is that the last team that had an elite number 1?
That's what I was just trying to
you got Cowboys and Michael Irvin.
Because the one time the Pats had an elite number 1, they didn't win. And then they traded him.
I'd have to look, but sure, why not?
So, my whole deal is everyone that's freaking out as if the New York Giants were a contender and they just got rid of their best playmaker. I've been on this train for a long time. This roster is horrific. And if you want to criticize the deal, what they should have criticized is, how did you not recognize this before last year? Why did it take you a year too long to do it? And I will acknowledge that. At the same time, I don't really know what you were going to do. And this is the other thing that's really perplexing me. Do people not realize that Beckham's trade value went up because the Giants gave him the extension? Because they had paid him the $20 million, that made him more attractive to teams. Do people not do that math?
I get that, and I understand where you're going, because you've got a lot of trust in Gettleman right now. My question, is it because of track record, and or are you simply so glad to have Jerry Reese gone that you would believe in anyone in that spot at the moment?
Those aren't mutually exclusive to me.
Okay.
To me, it's track record, because the roster he built in Carolina was pretty darn good. Yes, he has, and the biggest reason I like him is, at Carolina, they're like, well, he doesn't have a great relationship with the players. Good. He's cutting them. He's trading them. I don't want him to have a good relationship with the players. He's the GM. He's not the head coach. He's not responsible. He is responsible for the roster. Like, I don't need him being buddy-buddy. Because you know who did have a great relationship with the players he drafted? Jerry frickin' Reese. So I don't really – I don't need that. And then on top of that, Jerry Reese was an idiot. And I had been proclaiming he was an idiot for how he built the roster. And now Gettleman is slowly but surely undoing almost every single move he's done. So therefore, I have trust in the fact that he recognizes none of these guys can play.
So with that 20th pick or 17th pick, whatever it is, do you anticipate them going quarterback at that point? Does this get them out of the quarterback market?
This is what I think is interesting about the moves. Everyone's freaking out. Well, they've strongly been linked to getting Rosen out of Arizona. And then the reports have been coming out that the most likely asking price is a 3rd-round pick for Rosen. I don't think it's any coincidence that the Giants made sure they got an extra 3rd-round pick out of this. So then if you're telling me that you flipped Odell Beckham for Josh Rosen, for Jabril Peppers, an extra first, you're telling me that's not a good way to rebuild?
That's a really good move because it lets you use your 2 first-round picks on players that can help you next season.
And you got a tackle out of it with the Browns.
Okay. You're selling me. I had no opinion.
Yeah.
But do you see what I'm saying? Like, this is what drives me insane. Smart people are freaking out. It's like the Giants were freaking 5-11 team coming off of a 3-13 year. Like, this is a bad football.
You know my theory on this. And I swear to you, I'm more and more convinced of it all the time. The people with all of the hot takes, these national people, they don't watch the games. They don't see the teams.
I'm with you.
Here's the deal.
I'm fine with those, but like the people like Bill Barnwell, like people that I think are smart and have a track record of not just being a contrarian or just trying to be a soundbite. Like everyone is acting like, what the hell were they doing? Like I'm going to try and rationalize this, but I can't. It's like I just did it in 5 minutes.
Yeah, you did it in a way that makes sense. I mean,
and that's not a spin zone. If I thought it was stupid, I'm quick to point out it's stupid. Like, I didn't think it was stupid.
You had a question about those other teams, Jeffrey. I looked it up. The Packers, that was Donald Driver, and then the Steelers was Hines Ward and Santonio Holmes.
Okay,
so yeah, you're getting back to the point.
Like that's my like.
It's a bunch of those level guys, like Marvin Harrison with the Colts,
Reggie Wayne. Like,
yeah,
you know what I mean? Like, great players, and I guess Marvin's in the Hall of Fame, right? Or is he?
I don't even know.
But I don't know. Like that's just like my whole deal. Like if they, I just feel like I'm surrounded by. Like I just yet again feel like this is a classic example of I'm put on this planet to be annoyed.
Take a break in our talk with Jeffrey to see about Mastercuts Lawn and Landscape. MastercutsLawn.com, 662-607-7773. You can also get a free quote by email with info@gomastercuts.com. They offer plenty of different services, including the basic maintenance that you will not have to take care of yourself through your yard. Also anything with landscaping, with flower beds, with pine straw, planting new flowers and trees, or building structures, everything from custom playgrounds to decks, fences, and more. And we'd appreciate you mentioning the podcast or rebelgrove.com in the process. Again, that's mastercutslawn.com or 662-607-7773.
Podcast also brought to you in part by John Edwards of Regency Travel Incorporated in Memphis. It's spring break. I know a lot of people are traveling, so you're probably starting to think about your summer vacations. And it's time to do that. It's time to hop on that, whether it's the golf trip to Scotland and Ireland, whether it's a trip to California, whether it's a trip to the Gulf, a cruise, whatever it may be. Get in touch with John. He's part of Virtuoso. It's a worldwide network of travel partners that allows him to supply his clients with added values and unique benefits that are simply not available to other travelers. John traveled the globe for 37 years before he even got into the travel business, so he knows the extra attention that's needed to make a special trip one that creates a lifetime of memories. What you do is you call John, you give him some parameters and a budget, and let him give you some options. And know this, you don't have to live in or near Memphis to take advantage of his services. It's 901-494-3387, or send him an email, jedwards@regencytravel.net. First-time clients can save $50 off their first booked trip just by telling John you heard about Regency Travel on the podcast. It's a podcast that's also brought to you by Grenada Nissan. If you're in the market for a Nissan vehicle, look no further than Grenada Nissan. They've got a complete selection of new and previously owned Nissans, great lease deals as well. So get in touch with Gene and Sandy Grass. Let them know you heard about Grenada Nissan here on the podcast or rebelgrove.com, and you'll get Rebel savings on top of the already great deals and great service at Grenada Nissan. It's GrenadaNissanUSA.com.
Now back to Jeffrey Wright.
So the Bears go out and get Cordero Patterson. They still have $20 million to spend. I mean, this is a Super Bowl champ, right? It's over, right? The season's done?
See, I have more of a problem with the Patterson thing. Like, what good has he been whatsoever in this league?
He was pretty running back last year.
I think so. The Patriots used him in goal line situations. That is where he saw his biggest benefit.
I did like how there's been a lot of people like, why don't they ever try him at running back? Because I remember Dooley sometimes would use him as a running back, toss it out to him, he was effective, and everyone's like, why don't people try him as a running back? And well, he's not a running back, he's receiver, and that's the NFL mindset. Like when he is what he is, and then Belichick gets him like, why don't we put him in the eye? Give him the ball.
I mean, he's a freak of an athlete. He just can't catch.
Yeah, so put him at running back.
And Nagy's unconventional as an offensive coach. I mean, he's more cut from the Sean Payton cloth. I mean, he's willing to try different things. It'll be interesting.
Andy Reid guy. I mean, look how week in, week out, I think the most creative offensive guy is Andy Reid.
I'm really proud. I'm really proud of Neil. He's in year one of Bears fandom and already justifying bad picks. It's great. I love it. I'm so enjoying his NFL fandom.
We got money to spend, man. It's not like my Cubs.
Spend it on him.
The Cubs keep going, we're broke, and so I'm kind of excited to have a team that's going, hey, we're going to throw some stupid money around. Let's do it. It's not my money.
Well, there's a hard salary cap too.
Yeah. Is this all on the ownership, or is Theo getting any of this blowback?
It's all ownership. I've told y'all my theory on this. The Cubs are going to be a bad team, and at the end of the season, Theo is going to walk out and go, I'm done. We had a deal, and they lived up to the deal for a period of time, and now they've stopped, and I'm out. I mean, the Cubs have major bullpen issues right now, and maybe the best closer in the game is on the free agent market, probably willing to take a short-term deal at this point. And you're not even involved because, quote, we don't have any money, end quote. Stop. I mean, stop. No one believes that.
I hate to hear that. I really do.
Is Goldschmidt the most underrated signee of the year?
Ask me in July.
Okay.
Yeah, and he's really, really good, and he's going to really, really help them. The question will be, does he re-sign with them? If he re-signs with them, then yes, absolutely. If he doesn't re-sign with them and he leaves after 1 year of free agency, it's still a good deal because you didn't give up a ton, but for it to really be.
Well, the last time we did this, we gave you Jason Hayward. So hopefully he has a huge year. Y'all sign him, and then he ruins your roster again.
Yeah, I'd really rather not talk about Jason Hayward at this point, if that's okay with you. He did have a great speech. He gave a great speech during a rain delay, and it was worth it.
Did y'all see Lori Laughlin's kid was partying on a USC trustee's yacht yesterday?
I did.
No way.
Well, I mean, she's a crew member, right? So she's got to be out on the water. I mean, it makes sense.
I do think the most underrated part of this whole thing is she couldn't even fill out her application, so they'd use a fraudster to fill out her application.
What I loved was her Instagram video or whatever it was. Snapchat.
It was a YouTube. I would say it was an AMA, Ask Me Anything, but she set some guidelines that there were some things you couldn't ask her beforehand.
She goes, I just want to go to the parties and go to the games, and I've got lots of stuff to do. I need to talk to my deans and stuff. It's like,
here's my question. Why didn't they just bribe some admissions guy? Wouldn't that have been easier and cheaper?
No, this was my question. Why didn't they just write a $1 million check or $500,000 check to USC? Like,
that's been known to work last time names go on buildings.
So if for instance that doesn't work, this truly is a really tragic tale of the class system, because you're told for your whole life, if you grow up to be rich in this United States of America, you can buy your way into places that you should not be in. But then they learn this harsh reality that maybe that donation won't get their kid in. And so then you do what everyone that's a poor person does. You turn to a life of crime. It's really just a tragic, tragic tale.
I mean, because the donation to build the new astronomy building would have been tax deductible too.
Well, that was my other question. Is like,
that's my best part. Not only are we bribing and paying off or whatever we're doing, we're also making sure that baby's tax deductible.
No, that was what I was. So when Neil was on with me on Tuesday, like that was our big question. We were trying to figure out, like, is this taxed differently? Like, by giving the money to this nonprofit, were they like
phony nonprofit? But yes,
right. But on paper, for instance, if you're told, hey, we got this foolproof plan to get your kid in, and even better, it's tax deductible. Why are you choosing to do this? Because as I've always known, I know a foolproof plan to get your kid in. Write that check. Like, you can go and negotiate with a lot of these schools and find out what it will take.
So is it possible that the freedom fighters in the admissions offices at some of these elite schools are winning the war?
I don't know, because it was perfect that it took all of 35 seconds for both ends of the spectrum to just come out. You had the far right just saying, well, they should have just posed as a minority group. And then you had the far left just saying, yet again, just more white people buying their way into places and not earning it. It's like, oh, my God, just freaking kill me. Like, do you know how many white people I know? Do you know how many white people I know that did this?
8,
like,
9.
Yeah.
I don't know what it says, and it doesn't even necessarily say anything bad. It cracked me up, though, that when these headlines first started coming out, all we saw was Lori Loughlin, and you never really even saw Felicity Huffman for a long time. It's like, hold on. The Full House chick that was like a third-rate character is the name that we're picking this, other than like the woman who has tons of awards. It was just something about the TV and the society thing of that cracked me up a little bit.
Well, even better, was William H. Macy Felicity Huffman's husband, the father?
Yeah, right.
Was he not named?
I did not see that.
No, he was not named.
Yeah.
So she did this all on her own. Well, here's the other best part. You know who the Lori Loughlin's daughter's roommate is, right?
No.
Joe Buck's daughter.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah. Now, obviously, Joe Buck's not tied to this.
Yeah, no.
By almost all accounts, everyone that's ever said anything about Joe Buck's daughter, like, that was earned, not given. She's not part of the Brad Calipari story.
Ooh, yeah. Oh, gosh. All right, who's your pick to win it? Who's winning the SEC tournament, even though it does not matter whatsoever? But for gambling purposes, if I wanted to take some money line, what do we got?
I mean, every advanced metric says Kentucky.
And it's home games.
And on top of that, like, the number one seed's going to be a little shorthanded.
So if I'm not picking Kentucky, who am I picking? I need value.
You got to go Tennessee because they've beaten Kentucky.
Okay. It feels like Kentucky's just running through this stupid thing.
At the end of the day, you have to pick someone that can beat Kentucky.
Yeah. Well, Neil thinks Arkansas is doing it, so.
No, I think Arkansas is getting to the final and losing.
Oh, gotcha. Okay, sorry.
I mean, just don't be stupid.
Okay.
Like, pick Kentucky or Tennessee. Pick whoever you think's going to win on Saturday in Nashville, where, oh my God, if they play, God.
Oh, it's going to be
How much
crazy.
you love to be a scalper.
How much trouble would I get in if I sold my press pass? Just sold the damn thing.
A lot.
Yeah.
And your parking pass, more importantly.
And more importantly, you just admitted to the idea on a show that reaches about 50,000 people a day.
Yeah, probably not the smartest thing in the world, but hey, we were talking about
This isn't like radio where it just goes up into the ether and it's gone if you didn't catch it. Like, this is on-demand audio content.
Does this real quick before we go? This does show you just how wildly popular Full House was with people who wouldn't otherwise admit that they liked Full House, right?
Oh yeah, I mean the first thing we saw was Aunt Becky jokes.
An entire generation watched Full House on syndication, male and female. And now you're getting the Fuller House people too.
That would be a better question. Was Full House more popular in its syndication run and post live run than it was in real time?
Yeah, I think so, because I think it took the same thing as Saved by the Bell. It hit that next generation that not only had to, you didn't watch it live week to week. You got like 3 shows a day every day for years.
So low key, we've like Full House is kind of like, it should be like the Full House of Horrors, right? Like,
ooh.
Turns out that Bob Saget uses the F word. Like Danny Tanner was actually.
Oh, I mean, he's one of the dirtiest comedians on the planet. Yeah.
A horn dog. Steph Jody Sweetney or whatever really loved the smell of meth. Now we've got white collar criminal Aunt Becky.
And then Dave Coulier just over here chilling.
Well, Dave Coulier was the inspiration for Alanis Morissette's first hit. You ought to know.
So who was the normal person in this house?
Didn't Kimmy Gibbler have some problems?
Yeah, it seems like that's right. DJ married the hockey player.
DJ married the hockey player, and she's Kirk Cameron's brother or sister.
Yeah, right. Okay, down the wormhole.
But she kept a little lower profile than Kirk.
Yeah, a little bit. Have a good day, Jeffrey.
All right, y'all.
Thanks to Jeffrey. I know he had a pretty busy morning, but still found a way to give us a little time there. We appreciate that every single week, including a week where he was also on the beer garden with Mr. McCready. They talked a lot of baseball. They talked a lot of other stuff, too, so you can still find that in all the places that you typically find that beer garden podcast presented by Oxford Crystal. And this here podcast is also presented by Community Mortgage, Oxford, Memphis, Soto County, and Chattanooga. Underwriting and processing is done in Memphis. They're getting local underwriting and understands your market. Also a leader in condo financing in Oxford. Pretty important thing there if you're in the market for that. And the float down option, which allows you to lock in the current rate. But if rates go down before you close, they can give you the lower rate. 662-234-2704 or JLOWE at communitymtg.com.
Savannah Square is a new 9-acre development, about 0.7 of a mile from the Oxford downtown square. It's conveniently located just east of North Lamar, just a short stroll from the Midtown Shopping Center, which houses Snack Bar, BBB, Jinsei, Track 61, also Volta, Handy Andy, the Oxford Canteen, all nearby. Savannah Square will initially consist of 32 standalone detached structures ranging in size from about 1,060 square feet to about 2,400 square feet. The model home is available for your inspection. It's located at 215 William Street. These homes have wonderful layouts, impeccable finishes, which you can inspect at the model home. So give Harry Alexander a call to take a look at the model, get more information about this great new development while they are still available. You can view more at savannahsquareoxford.com or give Harry Alexander with RE/MAX Legacy Realty a call or text at 662-801-5621. His email is ha@harryalexander.com. Podcast also brought to you by Oxford University Bank, OUB, locally owned and operated right here in Oxford. When you deposit money at OUB, that money and the vast majority of the bank's profits go right back into the Oxford community. OUB gives you the comfort of home, all the benefits the big mega banks provide, all the technology and products you can want, all with the personal touch. When you call OUB, you speak directly with the live person without having to press 10 buttons, without a 5-minute wait. OUB offers its customers the absolute best cash checking account. It's called Kasasa. And with Kasasa, OUB will pay customers 2.5% interest on their balances up to $50,000 and refund ATM fees nationwide. OUB also offers online bill pay and mobile check deposit using its online app. To learn more about OUB, check out liveoxfordbankoxford.com or call 662-234-6668. OUB is FDIC insured.
Connection's obviously a little spotty, so apologies for that. I think it's pretty good, but just letting you know we are in different places, so it kind of is what it is with Neil in a hotel room today. Dan Graziano last night says what I've learned about the Giants' plans in the next 24 hours, or in the past 24 hours. They're not planning to cut Eli even with a $5 million roster bonus due Sunday, and there's also still a chance they don't take a quarterback in this year's NFL draft.
Well, it tells you that the Rosen thing is potentially real.
Yeah.
Because look, if Arizona's going to take Murray number one, no matter whether we think that's smart or stupid or anything else, if they're going to take Murray number one, they're not going to bring Murray onto a roster where Josh Rosen's pissed off day one.
No. You're right.
You bring Murray in and make him your quarterback. You might go out and get a veteran guy in his mid-30s to sort of, allow a little buffer zone, but you're not bringing him in with another young quarterback. So that's not the way you do it.
Mm-hmm. So, transitioning a little bit in our final segment to college baseball. Ole Miss losing a couple games to Louisville in the midweek. They lose 4-3 in 10 innings on Tuesday, and then follow that up with a 10-8 loss yesterday to the Cardinals to complete it. It was 10-3 at one point, and really that was a story yesterday. Ole Miss, to their credit, didn't give up, hit a couple of home runs, had a pretty late rally there. I don't think they ever got the tying run to the plate, but they got close. But through 7 innings, that's what you want to look at yesterday. It was two issues, one each day from an offensive standpoint, a team that for right now has got to be carried by it. On Wednesday, Louisville had walked 10 batters through 7 innings, and Ole Miss only had 3 runs. That's completely unacceptable. Cooper Johnson said that. They just could not get a key hit. They were leaving runners everywhere. They were hitting the double plays. They were not having productive at-bats against, frankly, the bottom half of the Louisville bullpen, as the Cardinals were making sure they didn't ruin too many arms for Duke this weekend in an ACC series that makes a whole lot more sense. And then on Tuesday, they lose 4-3 when they get a really good outing from Doug Nikhazy. He gives up 2 runs before he ever got an out, then settles in, throws 6 innings, throws 89 pitches, gives up 3 runs total. They scored 3 runs in the 7th to tie it, and then lose 4-3 in the 10th. But the top of the order, and by that I mean the top 4 of Anthony Servideo, Gray Kessinger, Tyler Keenan, and Thomas Dillard, they combined to go 0-for-17 on Tuesday. Ole Miss is just not going to win many games when that happens. That's not going to be a recipe. And it's only one game, but those were the things that I took from it in a negative way. And then if you want a positive from that 2-week series, it's that Nikhazy did give you a lot of innings. Nikhazy still looks like a guy who can compete on the weekends if the role should turn to an SEC role. So, Neil, big picture, I know there's a lot of freaking out. As of this moment, the only certainty for Ole Miss is that they're in a lot of danger from the non-conference record standpoint. And let me explain that a little bit. They're currently 12-5. And going in, it's kind of like the old 20 number in college basketball, where you kind of want to get to 20 non-conference wins in college baseball. 20-6 is sort of the minimum on that being a positive in your resume chest when the time comes in June. Anything below 20, and it's kind of seen as a negative for those teams looking for host spots that don't have the exemplary SEC records. I mean, if you're 20-10 in the league, it doesn't matter. If you're 19-11, probably doesn't matter. If you're 18-12 even, you're still probably okay. But anything less than about 18, and I do think anything less than 20 becomes a bit of a non-conference hindrance for Ole Miss, even though they did play 3 top 15 games in there. There's some weak portions to their schedule. They still got 2 games with Pine Bluff, including one that's a makeup game for Wright State. I mean, from a net RPI value, that's about a loss of 220 or something. In that one swap out from Wright State to Pine Bluff. So that's a problem. I mean, because this team does not look like a 20-win SEC team right now. So I think that is your one focus on, definitely what's one thing to take of that actually is a certainty right now. That's what you look at. Now, otherwise, they just got to play better. I mean, they continue to do multiple things. not get through the first inning cleanly. They've now committed 7 first-inning errors in the last 5 games. I mean, that's bad on so many levels. A, it's just bad because you're making errors. B, it keeps pitchers from getting in rhythms. C, it makes pitchers throw more pitches early in the game. And then D, you're just putting runners on in the first inning. They can't seem to get out of the first inning. They're having some starting pitching issues they have to solve. They're having some bullpen depth issues that are strange because it's a lot of the guys they kind of had thought they would count on for sure. And then they're getting great efforts out of some guys they didn't necessarily expect to count on. So it's a weird deal from a rotation standpoint. And it's an offense that, as this goes on, and we get into SEC play this weekend, we'll see what it looks like. They have to prove they can hit upper tier pitching. And I mean, it's that deal where they hadn't played a lot of it, but they haven't, for the most part, done well in those games to this point. So we'll see how they do moving forward. I know there's a lot of frustration and concern, and I think concern is what is warranted. It's not panic. This was always going to, and again, this isn't easy, and this isn't a popular statement, but it's sort of the truth. This is always going to be a postseason success or failure. If they end up a 3 seed and go win a regional, they still won a regional. And if they're a host team that ends up losing a regional, they're still a team that lost its regional. It's become a postseason situation for this roster because, frankly, if the number 1 recruiting class in the country never gets to a super regional, that's a failure. So that's where this is. They have time to figure it out. I can give you some Pollyanna versions. I can give you some really, really negative versions. It's probably going to come out somewhere in the middle, but I do think concern is the word because as of today, through 17 games, this is not one of the best 5 Ole Miss teams that I have covered, in my opinion. I just think they're struggling in multiple areas to prevent that, and they've got some talent. They've got the roster. I think Mike is trying to figure it out to the level of, I hate to even really say over-managing because it's still so early. You don't want to give up on guys and you want to give them opportunity. So it's not that. I sense some moving of the parts that maybe relates a little bit of concern. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm reading that incorrectly. Maybe he'd roll his eyes at me. But I've covered him for a long time, and I'm sensing that he is greasing the wheels in a way to make me think that he is searching for something, whether how big or smaller that is, it's impossible to say at the moment.
If you had to say what's of the areas of concern, and that was the word I used in the mailbag too, so I feel better about it. Of the areas of concern, which one is the most concerning, and which one would you put the best odds at sort of straightening itself out?
Okay, on the straighten it out part, it's defensive because, look, they've had an awful week defensively, but they'd only committed 6 errors coming into last weekend. They had been a pretty clean defensive team, and I get that the error in college baseball is a stupid stat because scorekeepers are really, really bad for the most part. But they had been all right. They had, frankly, been better defensively than I had anticipated through every game until last weekend. They've just fallen apart in the early innings lately. I mean, they've gotten rattled. I think UAB had a lot of speed at the top of the lineup that kind of caused some throws to be rushed. That kind of, I think, shocked Ole Miss a little bit on how quick some guys were getting down the base pass, for that matter. The pitching is the one that I'm worried about, and it's weird because they kind of hear me out on this. Is they can't find a midweek starter. Jordan Fowler hasn't been very good. Nikhazy's been good, but we don't know what his role is moving forward or where they end up putting him. Houston Roth still just does not look healthy. He did not get behind batters. He threw the ball in the strike zone, but it didn't have a lot of life. It looked pretty flat yesterday. He just did not look like himself, in my opinion. I think you've got to just give him as much rest as needed because you're going to need Houston Roth before this thing's over, before May and June get here. Look, did Zach Phillips find something last weekend? He learned the slider, the cutter, whatever that thing is. If he is legitimately good, then those are 2 SEC starters and he and Etheridge. And then you got Hoagland, who is better. I think he's progressed every week. I think he's getting more comfortable. I think the transition on how to pitch at this level is going okay. And I say all this to say this. If your 3 weekend starters are okay, and you've got Green and Miller and some of these guys in the bullpen that maybe you weren't expecting to be good but are good, you're probably okay to manage this thing because the midweek stuff becomes less of a matter if you're good in league play, and frankly just kind of moving forward because you don't have those double dips. You're not playing Tuesday and Wednesday very often the rest of the way, if at all the rest of the way. So you can find maybe one guy to salvage things a little bit on a Tuesday. Your offense needs to go win a game, and it could be okay. That's sort of the Pollyanna approach to this thing moving forward, but I think it's real. I think that is a possibility that's legitimate, is that if your weekend starters are okay, the offense, maybe it's not as great as we're talking about, but it's not bad. You're going to be okay in the league. It's when you got to play these 5 games in a week that you're really starting to see some inefficiencies and some problems rear its head. So the schedule might really benefit Ole Miss as it moves forward to try to manage this thing.
Yeah, no.
That's why it's not panic. It's chill out, but here's the deal.
Yeah. Now, this weekend is critical.
Oh, see, we've talked about this. I think the first 2 weekends of league play are incredibly critical. Now, look, I get there are instances where Ole Miss and other teams have lost to the bad teams early and gone on these rolls, and you sweep LSU and you sweep A&M, and it's fine. I get that. But on paper, Ole Miss needs to make a lot of hay early in this conference season because of the way the schedule bears out. Alabama is unquestionably the worst team in the SEC West. You know, it's a good West, and Bama's better, but Bama is still the worst team in the division. You get them at home to open conference play, you got to win that series. I'll never say a team has to sweep, but you can't lose the series. They go to Missouri next week. It's a road game, but it's at Missouri. Missouri is probably the worst team in the SEC East. So you open with the 2 cellar dwellers the first 2 weekends. You've got to make some hay there because it does multiple things. It gives you some cushion. And frankly, it just gives you wins because when you're counting wins to get to certain numbers over the course of league play, it's hard to get there sometimes if you're not beating the Alabamas and the Missouris of the world. And then C, for this team that, yes, has a lot of veteran experience, also playing a lot of young guys in key spots, including the rotation with Phillips and Hoagland being first-year guys, even though Phillips is a JUCO guy, gives you some confidence before you head over to Fayetteville for a really tough series, and then come home for a lot of home games, but a bit of a gauntlet because you've got Florida in April, you got A&M in April, you have to go to Auburn, who suddenly is pitching the lights out of the dang thing. So it's tough. The SEC is a tough world, and that's why these first 2 weeks, to me, are very critical. I think if you get done with the Missouri series and on that plane ride home, I think if Ole Miss is 3-3, they better do some soul searching quickly because it's not a good answer for what's ahead.
That was my question for the people who are asking. And I know they're out there, and I'm not making fun of you. I'm not, because I do this with the Cubs and stuff, so I get it. When people keep all season, don't panic, don't panic, don't panic, don't panic. At what point is it appropriate to panic?
Well, I mean, again, I think we're kind of on a threat level wheel right here. There's like 5 spots on a threat level. And I think we're at like a 2 right now. Just a 2. Yeah, got some issues, but let's not go orange and red on everybody yet. It's just over here. It's not that real bright green color everybody likes on the left side. So it's up a little bit. I think if you come back with less than a 500 record in the league play after Missouri, we put it up another notch. 3.5. Okay? You still got 8 weeks left in the season. So it's not a, hey, everything's gone, whatever. I mean, if you're 3-3 after the first 6, yeah, it ain't good, but okay. Because, I mean, then all of a sudden you go take 2 in Fayetteville and you look like an idiot for panicking. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't think it's true just, this thing is a disaster panic time until you're, let's say, coming back from Auburn and you don't have a winning record in league play. That's April 20th-ish, something like that. By that point, you've played a good hunk of your schedule, and you've played a good hunk of kind of your home games. You've had that stretch where, you know, you've already had the Grove Bowl weekend at home against Florida. You played Kentucky at home, which is a series that you should be able to put down as a W if you're just doing this thing by chalk and on paper. And then you go to Auburn, which, while not an easy trip, one of your easier road tests that you're going to have, I guess right in the middle, because it wouldn't be as tough as LSU, and it wouldn't be as tough as Arkansas, but it's more difficult than Tennessee or Missouri. So right there in the middle, how do you do in some of those 500-type games? Because if you come home from Auburn and you're in bad shape, let me just pull it up real quick. Again, it's a podcast. We have time for this for a second.
Sure.
You've got a couple weeks that could get really, really kind of squirrely on you after that, where there's not a lot of chances to make up ground. Because you play a Texas A&M team that it struggled some, but they have a lot of pitching. Now, it's a good matchup for Ole Miss because they throw tons of fastballs. I mean, Texas is always littered with these mid-90s, low-90s right-hander kind of guys. So it's not a bad matchup for Ole Miss. But if you come home from Auburn and you're not doing well, that's April the 20th, so I had the date right. You play a Tuesday Mississippi State game in Pearl, which is another potential non-conference loss. Maybe it's a win, maybe it's a loss. I'm just saying a tough game. Then you come home and play at A&M, which suddenly would look like a must-have series. I mean, if you're going to get tied at any point, that would be the series because it's this home stretch. It's right after the Governor's Cup. It's right before a Southern Miss game in Hattiesburg, which has been a tough trip for Ole Miss in years past. And then it's right before this trip to Baton Rouge, which just has neon signs all over it because of the fact that we keep talking about how they haven't won a series in Baton Rouge since 1982 because they, haven't won a series in Baton Rouge since 1982. So I think that's the spot on the schedule to where we really look up and go, hey, what's going on here? Because then you got Mississippi State at home for I guess senior day or whatever, but the last home weekend of the year, and then you go to Tennessee, which Ole Miss hopes is to lock down host sites and to in a perfect world, you're 14, 15, 16 wins headed to Tennessee that weekend to close conference play because Tennessee's playing pretty well right now. They're probably not going to be by that point of the season. I think from a schedule standpoint, Ole Miss has a gift from the gods as far as an SEC schedule. When you play who? You like to play LSU a little earlier, but otherwise, it's a really nice schedule on not just who you play, who you don't play, but when you play them. I think it really bears itself out. And then Ole Miss getting that benefit from not playing Georgia, Vanderbilt, or South Carolina because, frankly, they're going to need some league wins on this thing. So, no, it's not panic time. It's concern time. I can find past seasons where at this point Ole Miss kind of fell apart and tread water the rest of the year, and then I can look towards seasons including the 2006 one where they had to replace all three weekend starters. There was tons of pitching indecision, and then Mike just sort of figured it out at one point. They went on a roll. They end up winning 17, 18 SEC games. They won the SEC tournament. They ended up in a super regional because they figured out pitching. That was a team that started 13-11 and 1-5 in the SEC, and I'm pretty sure that were message boards as popular as they are now in 2006, there would have been, threat level 5 unlimited panic buttons going off at that point in Oxford. So, we've been here before, and I'm smart enough, I have enough experience to know that it can go either way. But no, when I'm watching this team, they are currently not passing the eye test at all facets, and that's what's concerning for the Rebels.
Let me tell you real quick before we conclude, the Ole Miss men's tennis team kicks off their SEC home slate tonight at 6 versus the Auburn Tigers. Admission is free. For more information, visit OleMissSports.com. Fresh off a victory over Mississippi State last week, the Ole Miss women's tennis team back at home, they host Alabama Friday at 3 p.m. Admission is free. More info can be found by visiting OleMissSports.com. And as we just got through talking about, the Ole Miss baseball team opens SEC play at Swayze Field this weekend. They take on Alabama for a 3-game series beginning Friday at 6:30. General admission tickets remain and can be purchased by visiting OleMissTix.com.
So we will have another podcast tomorrow. We'll obviously be talking about the Rebels and the Crimson Tide tonight and getting ready for the Rebels and the Crimson Tide from a baseball standpoint. Should Ole Miss win tonight against Alabama, they'll play Kentucky tomorrow night, so plenty of talk about that as well. So appreciate Jeffrey again. I'll be back tomorrow.